Josh Naylor traded over to the Dbacks this offseason. He's entering a contract year. He was awesome last season. 31 home runs, 108 RBI, batting average a little bit lower than you'd like at 243, but he finished a top 35 player in Roto. 3.1 fantasy points per game, were fourth at the position. And Naylor benefited greatly from the changes to progressive field, which helped left-handed power play up across the board. We saw it with Naylor. We saw it with Jose Ramirez. We saw it with Steven Kwan. So obviously Naylor benefited from that. The move over to the D-backs, who just led all of baseball in runs scored. Obviously it's a positive lineup shift, but Chase Field actually ranks dead last in left-handed home run park factor. Scott, are you in or out on Josh Naylor, ADP right around 75?
That's interesting because, there's a big difference here between the Fantasy Pros ADP and the NFBC ADP, which we're used to looking at. He is going about 95th rather than 75th in NFBC. So I have Naylor in a very large tier, the largest tier at the position. I have him tiered with Walker, of course, but also Tristan Casas, Vinny Pasquantino, Cody Bellinger. I don't see myself reaching up to take Naylor when there are that many left in the tier. I think Naylor's fine. I think he just had his best year. It was frustrating in a way because we've seen him hit for higher average, but part of the reason his batting average suffers, even with a low strikeout rate, is that he sells out kind of hard for the home runs. I could see that becoming a problem in Arizona, but I don't really think it will. I think there's a chance the batting average bounces back a little bit. Maybe he trades off some home runs, but overall he's going to be about as valuable as he was last year. I'm just not sure it's worth what the ADP here says it is, about 75th.
One thing I will say for Josh Naylor is if you're the person who takes Elly De La Cruz in the first round, you should take Josh Naylor in the 7th or 8th because it's very rare for a player to be an RBI standout relative to their own production, right? Like your RBI typically comes from being a good hitter. Josh Naylor's contact skills make him a really, really good source of RBI. And we saw that well before last season. He had 97 RBI in 121 games in 2023. He was on a 100 RBI pace in 2022 as well. Now he's getting park downgrade, but lineup upgrade. I think he is someone who will outpunch his weight in RBI at the very least.
Yeah.
So this is
projected to bat third. I just wanted to bring up behind Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte. So that's a very good bet for 100 plus RBI.
So to get into the specifics with the batting average, Naylor hit 243 last year. The expected batting average was 257, not far apart. The previous year, he hit 308, and the expected batting average was 293.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
He hit more line drives in 2023 and 2024, but not by an order of magnitude.
But 293 is the big outlier for his career because he's been 254, 257, 293, 257 over the last 4 years. So
I think 260-ish is a fair expectation.
Now, the one thing is Arizona is a gigantic park. I think in terms of overall area, it's the second biggest park in baseball. And so there's a lot of room for doubles and triples out there. And so that's the one thing is like he might struggle to hit 20 homers this year because last year was the first time he'd ever hit 20 homers, right? He had 20 in 2022.
But he fell short for health most of the time.
Like it might be 2022. I don't think we're going to see another 31 homer season again from him. But I could see Josh Naylor hitting 275.
I could see him hitting higher than that. What I'm saying.
It's possible. Yeah.
I think what we're kind of trying to say here, there might be a bigger range of outcomes than we're expecting just because he could hit for better batting average.
Yeah.
The power, will the power retain? I mean, there are questions, but I think at the end of the day, if Josh Naylor is the player he's been the past couple of years, he'll be a productive one for fantasy.
We don't know exactly what the production is going to look like, but he's probably going to trade off batting average for home runs to some degree and wind up overall in about the same place.
I think I'm actually out personally, just because he's had trouble staying healthy. You're buying off of a peak year. Quality of contact took a huge step back in the second half. And his ADP is right next to Christian Walker. And in a vacuum, I'll take Walker every time over Josh Naylor. So I don't think it's going to be for me. But better in roto categories or head-to-head points?
Definitely points because of how little Naylor strikes out. And for sure, I would take Naylor over Walker in points.
Yeah.
He had head-to-head points per game last year. He was a true standout, 310. That was a little bit behind Freddie Freeman.
Mm-hmm. I did want to, let's see what that was in 2023 real quick. The point per game average.
I would guess it was pretty similar because he had so many RBI in 2023.
Yeah. 3.2 fantasy points per game for both, by the way, Josh Naylor and Christian Walker in 2023. Let's talk about Christian Walker, who signed with the Astros this offseason. He missed just over a month with an oblique strain last year, but has been incredibly consistent over the past 3 seasons, between an 803 and 830 OPS, between a 249 and 257 XBA, between a 460 and 484 X slug. So you kind of know what to expect. Now, he is moving into a different park, so I guess there could be questions for any player that signs in a new location, but it's a pretty damn good park to hit in, especially being in Houston as a right-handed power bat. Feels like it would work out pretty well for Christian Walker. Obviously, it's a lineup downgrade going from the top scoring team in baseball to the Houston Astros, but, batting 4th or 5th behind Yordan Alvarez and Altuve, I think there will be plenty of RBI opportunities for Christian Walker. Chris, what do you think? If you're on the clock, need a first baseman, sounds like maybe you'll take neither, but if you had to take one, Christian Walker or Josh Naylor?
I do have Christian Walker 2 spots ahead in my overall rankings, so it's not a strong conviction there. The only thing is, like Scott said, these 2 guys are at the top of a large tier. And I have the same guys in that same tier. They're separated by about 20 overall picks in ADP, Christian Walker and Spencer Steer at the high and low end. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to take the top ones. But the thing about Christian Walker, and I actually think you're downplaying how consistent he's been for, frankly, even longer than you gave him credit for, because you look at the last 6 seasons entering 2025. So going back to 2019, 824 OPS, 792, 697. 2021 was a disaster. He was terrible. 804, 830, 803. He's been between a 792 and an 830 OPS in 5 of the last 6 seasons. I think Christian Walker, he actually, I think, had a career high average exit velocity last season.
Yep.
And it's a nice park upgrade, lineup downgrade, but still a good lineup, like you said. Christian Walker is about as safe a bet for 30 homers and 100 RBI as any 34-year-old can be. The problem is he's 34, and literally everything we just said about Christian Walker, if you run the tape back to 2021,
I was going to make the same point.
It's exactly what we would have been saying about Jose Abreu. Sorry, 2022. He was coming off a down year, but we were still pretty optimistic. And so it's just, you don't know when the 34-year-old slugger is going to fall apart. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't necessarily expect it to happen.
Well, strikeout rate was up 5 percentage points last year. His second half was terrible. Injury shortened by an oblique, so got only about 100 at bats, but it was bad. I don't like. There were more worrisome signs for Jose Abreu when he signed with the Astros.
Yeah, his power completely disappeared.
But I'm not totally at ease with Walker. I don't want to oversell the safety.
One thing I'll point out with the strikeout rate, which was up, as you mentioned, the zone contact, swinging strike rate, and chase rate all basically in line with previous seasons. So I don't know if there was anything to that strikeout rate being up, but maybe bounces back a little bit. If I'm on the clock, I would take Christian Walker over Josh Naylor this upcoming season. Let's move on to Cody Bellinger, long time coming, traded over to the Yankees this offseason in basically a salary dump, and he did miss some time last season with a fractured rib and then a fractured left middle finger. Bellinger has reinvented himself with the Cubs the past 2 years. He's sacrificed exit velocity for contact. He's striking out a lot less than he did in his last couple of years with the Dodgers. But as a result, we're not getting big exit velocities, massive power numbers from the past either. He took a big step back from 2020 in 2023. But Chris, how much does that matter now that Bellinger is playing his home games in Yankee Stadium, which feels like a match made in heaven?
Yeah, I think it's 2 steps forward, 1 step, or 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward. Yeah. So I don't think he gets all the way back to where he was in 2023, just because it never made sense. Like he wasn't a 30 homer skill set guy. He wasn't a 307 batting average guy. He definitely wasn't both of them in a sustainable way, but 270, 25-ish homers, probably at the high end, but you never know with Yankee Stadium. I think a big question is how much does he run? Because he dealt with a lot of injuries last year. That's one thing that we haven't talked a lot about with Cody Bellinger. But remember, he fractured his rib at the end of April, came back in basically 2 weeks. I think he missed about 17 days. Then he missed about 18 days with a fractured left middle finger that he ended up playing through. And then he had a hamstring injury later on that only cost him a couple of days. But it was just a lot of stuff going on. And so I'm hoping that's the explanation for why he only stole 9 bases. Remember, the Cubs just didn't run in the first half of last season. Like, nobody on the Cubs stole a base in the first half of the season. Nico Horner had like 5 steals in the first half. It was ridiculous. And so maybe it's just that Cody Bellinger was hurt by the time he had the opportunity to steal bases like the rest of his teammates. That could explain it. I think we get the bounce back. It's probably decent production all the way around, like a B- in all 5 categories, maybe. But that can be that can be a pretty good player, as Spencer Steer has showed us the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, I expect Cody Bellinger to hit for more average than Spencer Steer.
Yes.
But otherwise, the numbers might look the same. And with even though Bellinger, he hit only 18 home runs. He did not have a good power year last year. Expected home runs at Yankee Stadium, 24. It was his 3rd best expected home run park. Obviously makes sense. Left-handed hitter, short porch and right. So I think he gets back to the 25 to 30 homer range if he's healthy, plays every day. And if he can get to 15 to 20 steals, run and RBI production should look good. I consider Cody Bellinger a bit of a sleeper this year, and I just straight up prefer him to Spencer Steer.
Mm-hmm. Better in a categories league or head-to-head points?
He actually had, even though he had a down year, he was right at 3 points per game last year. Better than Christian Walker, better than Spencer Steer, better than Pete Alonso, better than Matt Olson. So I'm going to say points, but we're talking about him like he could be a 5-category contributor. So it's not like I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of good in both.